Survival has been an increasingly popular mode for a lot of games, and it has also taken off as its own subgenre. Theme category is overflowing with games filling this criteria. But the question that spans across all survival games, and games in general, is what makes this a fun and engaging experience? The Outer Worlds has a survival mode known as Supernova Difficulty. This mode increases enemy health, limits fast travel, adds hunger, thirst, and sleep deprivation, and you can only sleep or save on the unreliable ship, among other things. Sounds good, right? This is all standard stuff for a survival mode or game. However, the more I play of this mode, the more I feel like Supernova showcases the Outer Worlds' flaws rather than its true strengths. Let me explain. I would argue the worst part of any survival mode is the enemies have increased health or dealing more damage. It doesn't necessarily add anything to your experience beyond making combat more difficult. You may as well call it an extra hard mode, but this mechanic exists for a reason. This is typically a feature in most survival modes to push the common ideal of slowing down the player, making them think before they act, the common theme of short-term failure. Survival modes thrive on the concept of short-term failure, the constant threats and need for eating, sleeping, drinking, and strong enemies possibly lurking around every corner, and not being able to save at will. All these concepts drive the threat of failure, and having to return to the last time you slept or saved, which could have been over an hour ago. The loss of progress constantly looms over the player. Where will I find my next meal or drink? Do I have enough money to buy food or buy better gear? Is there bandits or creatures lurking around this corner? Should I fight? Should I run? What these questions do is force the player to slow down their momentum and pace throughout the game world, looking for food or water or being careful not to engage in unnecessary combat. By slowing the player, you're inherently becoming more immersed in the immediate surroundings. The constant threat and need for safety drives this behavior. You can no longer run and gun or skip through the game world without a worry. You have to be aware of what's happening around you. A great survival mode leverages these concepts to immerse the player in the world in front of them, but by making the player see the Outer Worlds not by the total sum of its parts, but by the world immediately in front of them, slowing your progress and the overall experience to a crawl. That is where the Outer Worlds falters. The game world feels static and in some cases empty. Game marketing commonly refers to a term dynamic. Dynamic open world, dynamic NPCs, dynamic urinating. But that poses the question, what is a dynamic open world? Dynamic can be defined as a process or system, or in our case a video game, categorized by constant change, activity, or progress. Open world games are described as a type of video game where a player can roam freely throughout the virtual world and given considerable freedom in choosing how or when to approach objectives. The Outer Worlds may not strictly be a traditional open world game, but these concepts still apply for what the game is trying to achieve. Once you step outside the safety of the corporate walls, the dangerous world you're presented with is ever the same. From my 35 plus hours of play, there is no random encounters. Marauders and creatures always spawn in the same locations. You encounter the same 3 container assets to loot. When you loot a corpse, you're not actually taking the items that enemy was holding, leaving their corpse naked to the elements. They may drop a weapon or a piece of armor, or the enemy may literally drop nothing. Once you've taken your hard-earned loot, the corpse is no longer interactable. This feeling is also felt with all the other assets in the world. They are not interactable by the player, only static meshes and textures to dress the environment. The player is presented with a single option to interact with the world in front of them. That option is looting. If you cannot pick up the item, the asset is static. You cannot move it or interact with it in any way. Now, you can call this nitpicking for sure. What I'm trying to highlight is that these features, from random encounters, interactivity in the game world, and the freedom it gives the player, is primarily what drives that suspension of disbelief. That feeling that the game world is alive, a dynamic open world. When you activate Supernova, by design, the player's progression is slowed down. You must check every corpse, or bench, or container in case it contains something you need. Once I started to do this constantly, I started to realize what's missing from the game world. The best game worlds make you feel like your character exists in the world, rather than the world existing around your character. Whether it's 200 years in the future, riding around in the Wild West, or stuck on an island with cannibals. Real life itself is a dynamic open world filled with random encounters, and a believable game world should mirror this behavior in a way that fits the world the developer is trying to create. In contrast, the strength of the Outer Worlds is in its character design, its writing, and its questing. The feeling of choice and consequence that's presented to the player for quest outcomes. In order to enjoy these features at their full potential, Supernova Mode is not necessary. Living in this world makes you realize how static each planet's region is. After returning to my ship to save, or running past the same group of marauders without any new interactions along the way, eventually feels tiresome, and it's an otherwise down experience in a fantastic game. The Outer Worlds is one of my favourite games of 2019, but I won't be choosing the survival mode floor. It's not worth an extra perk point to my experience. Let me know what you think of this video, guys. It's a bit of a different tone to a lot of my other content, so I'm interested to hear what you guys think. I've completed the Outer Worlds, and I've started a second playthrough on stream with Supernova difficulty, and the more I played of it, I really started to realize that I felt like something was missing, and I wanted to make a video about my thoughts. Anyway guys, follow me on Twitter and Twitch if you want to stay up to date. That's all from me today. My name is Norza, thank you for watching and have a great day.